Oh, yeah, boy. What's up, everybody? Ho! Welcome to Real Ballroom Talk. Season 2. That's right. My name is A.A. Ron Desoto. And we are back. Back at it, baby. That music is really loud. I don't know if you can hear me or not. I'll let my editor, Declan, deal with that. That was loud. I love it. I can't even hear myself. Can you hear me? All right. Okay, I'm here at Chicago Open in Oak Brook, Illinois at the Fred Astaire Regionals. And I'm here with my special guest today, Kimalee Piedad. Did I say that right?
Yes.
I had to learn how to say it. Piedad. And Kimalee is coming in from the Fort Walton Beach area, correct?
Yes.
She is a current member on the Dance Council for Fred Astaire. What's interesting about Kimalee,
This is not my room.
and that was Jimmy Carter. What's interesting about Kimalee is that she, I believe, kind of grew up in the Fred Astaire industry. You grew up in Fred Astaire learning all your ballroom is what I'm trying to say, correct? See, you're nervous? I can't even talk. You kind of grew up in Fred Astaire as far as your ballroom journey, correct?
Correct.
But before we get into that and start talking about the subject I want to talk to, let's talk a little bit about your background because you were dancing when you were very young, correct?
Yes.
How old were you when you started dancing?
I started dancing when I was 9.
9 years old. And you were doing that hip hop, right?
Oh my gosh.
No?
Hip hop was probably the only style that I did not do.
Okay.
But I go for it, when called.
Right. You could
yeah.
do it if you have to.
Yeah.
But you did, what was it, ballet?
I did ballet, jazz, modern.
And how good were you in ballet? There's like certain names for ballet. Were you you weren't a prima ballerina? Isn't that that was like a Jim Carter level?
I was the principal dancer.
You were the principal dancer?
In my regional company.
What does that mean?
So when you have certain ballets, you're casted in different parts, and principals usually just had the lead parts. So
cool. Oh, so you were the lead.
I was the lead
you're
a lot
being
of the
modest.
time.
All right, very good. So yeah, you were very good. So you had that background, and then you jumped into ballroom. And what did that background do for you going into ballroom? Did it help you in some ways? Did it hurt you? What would you say?
I wouldn't say that it hurt me. I think ballet is like one of the main genres that kind of just help with really any style of dance because you know how to hold yourself, you know how to have your muscle tone and all that. It's easy to learn, I think, other styles from there.
Yeah.
I think one thing that was challenging for me at first was that because of ballet, I held myself very high. So starting to do like the rhythm and feel like, you can get more like, loose.
Yeah.
It was harder. It was harder at first, but then you start having
you're
fun
always
with it.
taught to be in this position,
Yeah.
right? So overall, it absolutely helped you because it helped you train your body to get in the right dance position. And then from there, you just had to learn how to let go a little bit almost, right?
Yeah.
All right. So you got into ballroom, and everybody knows you primarily for being the theater arts champion, right? Professional theater arts champion. Not only the United States champion, but the Blackpool champion, correct?
Yes.
And when was that Blackpool championship? What year was that? Do you remember?
Gosh, 2012.
2012, right?
Yeah.
And you won the U.S. title at least once, like if not multiple times, didn't you?
Yeah. U.S. title, I think that was like 5 times, 6 times.
You won it so many times, you don't even remember. You lost count. She's like, 5, 6 times. Doesn't everybody win? That's pretty amazing, and that's kind of what I want to talk to you about because you've reached really the pinnacle, the highest you can possibly go for the theater arts dancers. Jim Carter was kind of here and then like 4 or 5 more steps. What, Jim? 6 steps. 10 steps. All of a sudden you're here winning at Blackpool on the biggest stage in the world in the most prestigious competition. And of course, USDC is up there too. I'd like to know Oh, I thought he was young. I'd like to know when you're going onto that stage. Okay, let's take Blackpool, and you're in the theater, you're in that ballroom. It's been around forever. It's well known. Are the nerves kicking in? Is it different being there versus being back home in Fort Walton Beach and practicing in the studio?
Oh, yeah.
I would think so.
So, like as you're saying it, I'm picturing this ballroom that I remember when I first saw it, I was thinking, how do you ever dance like big enough to fill this giant room? Like other floors are still big, but this felt like you'll never create enough energy to like fill this space.
Yeah.
It was so crazy. But just like kind of other competitions, the more each year that I went, I kind of felt it. It was a little smaller, a little easier. Like, okay, I can do this. But the first time was like, I was like, this is too big. I can't. They're not even going to see me.
Right. So how do you get through that? You get out there. I mean, you won. You're out there. You're the top of the top, and you're having these thoughts. And I think that's good for some of the rising star couples, or even if you're a student and you do theater arts and you're getting nervous at your regional. It's great to hear it from one of the best. How do you get through that? How do you feel that you're like, oh my gosh, you can't see me? What are you telling yourself? What are you thinking about to start that routine? What are you saying in the middle? And how are you getting through the end?
I think, for me, really any competition, I would get nervous. Like any competition, it didn't really matter. That Blackpool in particular was just like the room was so big, it felt different. But I just knew that I had to trust my body, like what I had been practicing. I practiced it every day. We've done it. It's not like you've never done it before.
Right.
So you kind of trust that your body already remembers like what it should do, even if you feel like you can't think of it, right then. Like I didn't even act, to be honest, before we would dance, we really didn't do that much.
What do you mean?
So for the other styles, we would kind of practice some things beforehand. But for our solo, we really, before we danced, we warmed up as far as like, just warm up our bodies.
Just physically warm up, jumping jacks,
but
push-ups, stuff like that.
We didn't do our routine.
So that's interesting. So now is this before Blackpool, by the way? Hey, before Blackpool or any comp, you're not in the back doing the lift or practicing that one lift that kind of went good this week, but you're a little worried about. Really, you're just warming up your body.
We just warmed up, and we would do it because we didn't want to. Let's say maybe you are practicing and then you do something weird or something different, or you mess up right beforehand. It's like I didn't want to be thinking that might happen, So
you're warming up, you have a little glitch, and all of a sudden it's a mental thing, and you didn't want that to carry out to the floor.
And we already knew, like we've done it. Your body remembers how to do it. You don't need to practice it a minute or 5 minutes before you're about to do it. Like you're going to do it because you've already practiced. That time is, it's not going to get better in that 5 minutes.
Well, yeah, it reminds me of kind of like the sports analogy, like a Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. You don't really need to practice too much at the game. All the hard work and the blood, sweat, and tears has happened in practice. So now it's just time to show what you've already put in. So you're already ready to do it. So that makes sense. When you are out there performing, and you're like, my body just kind of remember. Are you, in a sense, almost an autopilot, like just letting your body just go? And not as much like thinking about here's this, here's that, here's this?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I don't remember having a whole lot of thoughts about like this is next, that is next, do this. It was more about the music and what I know I should be doing at certain times in the music, but I wasn't thinking of it like sequentially, really. So we could know if we were like a little bit behind in something or a little bit fast, and we had more time to like maybe enjoy in between stuff if we
Interesting.
got fast. But I didn't. I think I trusted that we practiced it, and I really didn't think so much about that. I think it was more about now just sharing and enjoying what you've practiced, with audience.
So it's interesting. So it kind of sounds like you almost had your routines with the music, but you had a little room to play in there. So it's almost maybe every time you did the routine, it was slightly different timing. I mean, you're on time, but you had.
Yeah. As you get better, I think in any really style, you don't have to think as much about what you're actually doing. So things happen also kind of faster. They happen easier. So then, because especially for theater arts or cabaret, you don't really have like musical counts and timing.
Right.
You just have, areas in the music that you're trying to highlight. So I would say our timing is pretty close to the same every time, but you might have done something a little easier, or you might have done something a little worse.
So in that case, you'd have to almost speed up the next
right.
part. Or if you did a lift and it just went up like boop, now you've got more time to delay before the next move. And that was just kind of something, obviously, you can't talk about while you're on the floor. So that's just something you guys both felt in the moment. And that really takes a long time, I'm sure, to develop that communication, nonverbal communication through the partnership.
Yeah. We, not too long ago, because it's been about 8 years or so since I've danced, but last year, Justin and I did a performance at the studio before he moved away. And what your body can remember from a partner that you've danced with for so long, it was like we didn't even really have to think that much about it. We could just kind of like, oh, like I remember how
it was still there.
That felt. Yeah, it's interesting. So it's hard to think like of once you have a new partner in something like that, you're starting, all over from like, nothing. You don't know how that person feels. You don't know how they're gonna. But sometimes you work with somebody who's like the way their bodies are.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say buff, and I was like,
the way their bodies
like,
are
no,
like perfectly like aligned.
I'll take that. So that's interesting. So if because you did a dance session in Long Grove, was it yesterday? Yesterday. Great dance session, and you're talking about lifts. And you kind of alluded to, the different sizes and shapes of the people you're doing the lifts with depends on different positions, different feels, and that's what you're kind of saying. Everybody, so it's different with every person you dance with. So if you're a student and you're dancing with one teacher, you switch to another teacher, you might have to hold a different position. You might have to balance in a different position than you did with somebody else. That takes a lot of time and practice to figure that out.
Yeah. I mean, there's a technique to how you might do something, but everybody's a little different, and you kind of have to work that out between, each other. And it takes time to be comfortable and know, like, I'm going to do it that same way each single time. So
Interesting. I want to talk about, because you got to such a good connection that 8 years later, it almost feels like it came back right away. How much time and effort and practice did you guys put in when you were on the circuit competing? But the lead up, and then once you were in it, and then once you were kind of the champions and maintaining it, how much practice were you guys putting in?
So when we first started, we were practicing a couple hours in the morning and then also a couple hours in the evening. But once we've got to a certain point, really, we were just practicing in the morning, like an hour and a half or an hour. Really, like, you can practice for a long time and not get that much done. But if you know what you're trying to do, what the goal is, you can, practice for a shorter time, and it can still be really good.
So no talking, no walking away, drinking coffee. You had really condensed,
Yeah.
focused practice.
And we had a routine. I mean, we came in, like, he did his own thing. I kind of did my own thing as far as, like, just getting ready to practice together. And for us, you know, there were certain lifts. We would just do the lifts themselves first. And then at the very end of the practice, we would do the routine. So, like, the routine itself, we really would just do it one time.
To the music?
To the music.
And that's the
But we
dancing,
did-
that's the transitions.
Yeah, we did the separate pieces first, and then, you know, so you don't need to do, especially something like that, to do the routine like over and over and over, all in one session. It's, you know,
You mean the whole thing?
yeah,
It's too much.
it's too much.
Yeah.
I mean, some days you got to do it more than once, but
Yeah. And how often would you do those? Say you had, I don't know, how many lifts do you have in a pro routine like that? I know there's a certain amount you have to do.
I mean, each routine was different, but I would say you probably had like 4 to 5 like really bigger things, and then 4 to 5 like smaller things,
So
like
one
tent stuff.
One
I
of the
don't-
bigger lifts, you know, one of the ones that make people go, oh my gosh. How many hours would you say you put into that one lift total? How many hours of practice?
I don't even know.
A lot.
A lot, yeah.
Like hundreds?
I mean, I could say so, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would also say, depending on the routine, like you're doing a new routine each year. So it's kind of like you develop the muscles that you need for that one routine. And then the next year you got to like start all over, different muscles, different timing, different.
I see. And how about one more question about coaches we haven't talked about, because, you know, you've got a song, you've got the same routine over and over again. When you're a theater arts couple at that level, did it behoove you to have lots of different coaches come in and talk about it and touch on it? Or in this case, were you working on like just the same specific coaches because they were maybe involved in making it or knew the process or knew the story behind it?
We worked primarily with like 1 or 2 people.
Really? Okay.
We had coaching with other people from time to time, but I would say like you're trying to be super consistent with something, and sometimes too many people with different ideas of what it should be can make it, you know, you might question a little bit as far as consistency. So our choreographers were our main coaches. We didn't really have too many other coaches on stuff like that. Now our other dancing, we had lots of coaches.
Right. And would you say is that more for the high professional level? Because you think, okay, student level, a theater arts routine, obviously it's a little different. Would you say the same thing, like just as specific coaches, or do you think that each coach could contribute and help?
Well, I still think each coach can contribute.
Yeah.
Everybody can contribute,
Yeah.
you know, something. What you take away from it, and I think also going into the lesson, you kind of know what you're wanting from that person. You know, we had certain people that we knew, you know, they didn't really need to help us so much with lifting, but they could help us a lot with the story, or they could help us a lot with, you know, transitions or the dancing parts. So I think, especially when you're working on a routine of some kind, I think it's just good to have an idea of what you're hoping to get out of the lesson, regardless, you know, of who you're working with.
Yeah.
But I think hearing from different people is important still.
And you have to probably really be clear with the coach what you want to work on.
Yeah, because everybody's going to come in and see something that they see, you know? So if you know, the good thing about, I think, all of our coaches is that they're going to help you with what you want if you let them know, you know,
Right.
what you're looking for.
Otherwise, they might just say something and you're like, that's against what our story is, or that's what we're trying to do. Communication is always key. And that not only for theater arts, but any coaching all the way down to students. You know, like if you have something specific you want that coach to work on with your student, it's the teacher's responsibility to make sure they understand that, because the coach is going to get great info, but it may not be the direction you want at that time. Okay, last question. It's an easy one, I'm sure. How would you how would you tell an upcoming rising star theater arts couple, or even maybe one that's been around, how do you get to the next step and really get to the top? What's the difference between competing and all of a sudden you're on top of the mountain?
So I would just say one is like consistency and persistence, because I think at some point, and I kind of feel this with anything really, is that if you're the one that's not going to give up, you're the one that can make it, you know, because there's going to be obstacles, there's going to be things, voices in people's head or other people's voices telling you that, you know, you need to do this or you need to do that. And being kind of true to yourself and just not giving up goes a long way.
Absolutely. Hey, very good. Well, Kimalee, that wasn't too bad, was it?
No.
Hey, listen, we wanted to hear what you had to say because you're at the top, and people are going to appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
All right, guys, this has been Real Ballroom Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Desoto. Thank you for coming back for Season 2. We got much more coming up. Stay tuned. Hit it, maestro. He said, oh. Hey. Like, Kimalee? Huh? How did you?